Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Trade Committee. Any members are visiting us. Today's a very important meeting. We have discussed this before. It's about the challenging trade issues with our canola industry, a very important industry, a crop that was developed in Canada, and it's over 250,000 jobs, 11 billion in wages, and almost 30 billion in sales. But before I start, I just want to give the committee a heads up that things are working quite well with the whips of our trip to United States, a very important trip that we're working on with the Ways and Means Committee. And just letting you know, it looks like we might be going between the 8th and the 10th, and so we would be meeting. We'll be going at that time. So just let the parties know, put your names in for your designated travelers. So right now it's looking good, and I think this could be a very important meeting. But without further ado, we're going to get right into our meeting. We have a very busy one today. We're going to have to be done at 5:30 sharp because there's votes.
No, they got canceled.
They got canceled? Okay, we're still going to be going to 5:30. We have two ministers here with us today, and we're going to give them an hour, and then we're going to have the officials who we see also in the room. So welcome everybody, and everybody for making the time, and we're hoping that we have a very efficient committee. Our members always keep their questions short, and the ministers keep their briefings short, and so we can have a good dialogue, and I'm hoping to get most of the members in to have their questions. And so without further ado, Mr. Carr, you want to start us off, and good afternoon and welcome.
Well, thank you, Chair and colleagues, and thanks for the invitation to appear in front of the committee. For a long time, I've believed that parliamentary committees are really the heart of our democracy. That's where we are held accountable. That's where we have spirited debates about public policy, sometimes contrasting in their point of view and perspective. It's open to the public, and it's just the kind of exchange that makes our democracy as vibrant as it is. And I'm particularly pleased to be here to talk about a very important issue, particularly for me as a Manitoban, because I know how important our agricultural and agri-food industries are. I know how vital the export markets are for the well-being of Western Canadians. I know that they are the wealth creators of the prairie economy, indeed of the national economy. I also know, as all members of the committee will know too, that China is a key market for our canola exporters. And one figure that always sticks in my mind is that if I were to ask you in what year did the Richardson family do its first deal with China, what might you say? Probably not 1910. For over a century, we on the prairie have been selling wheat to China. For over 100 years, prairie farmers have been growing and selling the highest quality products in the world to customers in China. And as a former CEO of the Business Council of Manitoba, I know how critical our agricultural exports are to the overall economy, not only of the prairies, but to the entire country. If our farmers suffer, we all suffer. If our farmers succeed, we all share in that success. And as Minister of International Trade Diversification, we must maintain our trading relationship with China. China is Canada's second largest trading partner and an important market for Canadian exporters. In 2018, two-way merchandise trade between Canada and China reached $102.2 billion. Canadian total exports of agriculture, agri-food, fish and seafood to China were valued at $10.5 billion in 2018, up from $8 billion in 2017, and even more from the year before that. Total Canadian exports of canola seed, oil, and meal to China in 2018 were valued at $4.3 billion, up from $3.6 billion in 2017 and $2.7 billion in 2016. But despite the depth and strength of our bilateral ties, as with any diplomatic relationship, ours is not without its challenges. And this is as true today as it has been in the past and as it was in 2009, the last time China gave us a little bit of grief over Canadian canola. We are extremely disappointed in the decision by China to halt import of Canadian canola. Last week, the Prime Minister and I met with Richardson executives in Winnipeg. Minister Bibeau and I also met with both Viterra and the Canola Council of Canada last Friday in Saskatoon. And importantly, over those number of days, we also met with our counterparts, the Ministers of Agriculture and Trade from both Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and we met also with the Premier of Saskatchewan to show that we are working in lockstep with the industry, with producers, and with our provincial counterparts. And I want to thank our provincial partners for their collaborative effort and for their support on this very important file. We're all committed to resolving this issue for our growers. This is not, colleagues, a partisan issue. And I'll say to you what we told the producers and our counterparts. Our government is seized with this issue. We recognize the potential impact of China's decision, and we are working hard to restore our exports to China and mitigate the impact of their decision on our canola sector and, by extension, our economy as a whole. Yesterday, we announced the formation of a working group, which includes the Canola Council of Canada, the Canola Growers Association, the Richardson Company, Viterra, and representatives not only from the federal government, but from the governments of Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. CFIA and our officials are working diligently with the Chinese to refute the reasons for halting Canadian imports. While those efforts continue, we are seeking other markets for Canadian canola. I have been working the phones to grow our canola exports in other markets. I've connected with and will continue speaking to my counterparts in other countries worldwide to expand our canola exports. Our government is committed, as you know, to diversifying trade and opening new markets for Canadian exporters. The newly implemented CPTPP and CITIT agreements are creating significant export opportunities for Canadians, with the CPTPP alone expected to result in $780 million in new canola exports. Canada now has 14 trade agreements covering 1.5 billion consumers in our free trade zone and access to nearly $50 trillion in combined GDP. Colleagues, we are the only G7 nation to have a free trade relationship with all of the other 6, which positions Canada to be an international leader and investment hub. Our government works diligently to help more Canadians export more goods to more places, creating more jobs and more wealth from coast to coast to coast. Thank you very much.
We also have with us Minister Agriculture and Agrifood, Minister Bibeau. Thanks you for coming and being with us, and welcome to the Trade Committee, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank all the members of the committee for your focus on this very important issue and calling us here today to address your questions. There's nothing more Canadian than canola. C'est un emblème de la science et de l'innovation agricole.
Canola is an emblem of science and agriculture in Canada, and it is something we are very proud of.
Many farmers, and contributes almost $27 billion a year to the Canadian economy, a contribution that has tripled over the last 10 years. Our producers create a top quality product, and the science and inspection system that supports our exports is world-class. Our government knows that strong markets for our high-quality Canadian canola mean more money in the pockets of our farmers and good middle-class jobs for Canadians. Comme vous le savez, la Chine a...
As you know, China has suspended export permits for 2 Canadian companies. It has also strengthened its inspection measures for all our canola strains. We are reaffirming our support for producers and will do everything we can in cooperation with industry partners to settle this issue.
Canada is prepared to send a high-level technical delegation to China. I have recently sent a letter to my Chinese counterpart requesting to send a delegation led by the president of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, along with her team of plant health experts and the support of technical experts from the prairie provinces. Entre-temps, les spécialistes des deux pays continuent.
In the meantime, experts from both countries are continuing to exchange information. The dialogue is ongoing. Just 10 days after I was appointed Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, I traveled to Alberta, Manitoba, and British Columbia. Here in Ottawa and in the West, I have already met with dozens of representatives from the industry, with producers and processors.
We were in Saskatchewan to meet with our provincial counterparts and agricultural leaders. Strong collaboration and ongoing dialogue between industry and governments is vitally important. That is why we have set up a working group that includes the Canola Council, the Canola Growers Association, Richardson, Viterra, representatives of the federal government, and the Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan governments. Le groupe de travail assurera une approche coordonnée.
The working group will provide a coordinated and cooperative approach so we can deal with the issue of accessing markets in China for canola. The group will also study the possibility of opening new markets in the short and long term.
Canada's canola farmers have concerns about seeding, storage, prices, and cash flow. We understand that. Et nous continuons d'explorer l'ensemble des outils.
We are continuing to explore all risk management and support measures at our disposal to help the industry and our farmers as much as we can.
World-class canola industry. Our government will continue to work together with partners and stakeholders to find a science-based solution to the current issues the industry is facing. Nous continuerons à soutenir fermement.
We will continue to support our producers. Thank you.
Looks like we're going to have time for two full rounds, so which is good. And I know our motion was dealing with mostly Richardson's situation, but I think I'll accept any questions dealing with canola and canola trade. Canola trade would be accepted. So without further ado, we're going to start right off with the Conservatives. And Mr. Hoback, you get the floor.
Well, thank you, Chair. And Chair, I just want to get on the record. I'm disappointed that we didn't get the ministers an hour each like we had committed to before, but it is what it is, and I'll take what I get. I can count over here, and I understand who controls the committee. So having said that, Mr. Carr, I appreciate your comments about being nonpartisan. I agree with that. I think if you look at Canadian farmers right now, that's the last thing they want. They actually want to see that you've got a good handle on the situation and that you've got a game plan going forward. So that's where my questions are going to be structured towards. Have you had a chance to talk to the Chinese ambassador about this issue? Has the Prime Minister talked to him? Have you talked to him? Ms. Bibeau, have you talked to him, had a chance to talk to him?
No, I haven't talked to the Chinese ambassador. All our discussions were science-based and led by the Canadian
But
CIIT.
even still, if you want a letter of invite into China, if you want to speed up the visa process, just a common courtesy call to the ambassador, I think on something like this would be appropriate, would it not?
I've already sent a letter to my counterpart in China to ask for this delegation. We have had quite a number of discussions between our representative at the embassy and their counterparts in China. We had two significant scientific, technical discussions between our officials at CFIA and their counterparts at Customs China.
Yep.
And my letter is asking, and actually the president of the CFIA letter is also asking for a delegation.
Unfortunately, I only get 5 minutes. I don't mean to be rude, please. But urgency, planting's happening. Again, John's writing probably in the next 2 weeks. 1st of May, guys will be seeding. And that's why I was really stressing on the committee when we first did the emergency or request for emergency meeting, roughly 3 weeks ago, why we need to move quicker and faster so that we get as much information in front of them so they can make the best decisions. So when I understand the reason for the technical delegation, I'm disappointed that it's still not there, like it's not already there and being done. To me, that should have been done in 2-3 weeks ago, and it should have already been crossed off the list of reality. I think we've done everything in Canada that we can do. I think, Mr. Carr, you were in the media saying that CFIA has re-looked at the samples, and there's absolutely nothing wrong. So we already know that the end result after all this is there's nothing wrong with our canola. It's a safe product, and it's actually something other than that. It's a political segment. But you still have to check that box. I get that. But in the same breath, you have to be planning for alternatives. So reality is, if you've checked that box and we said, yes, this canola is safe, we have not changed our processes, it's actually an issue, a political issue, what are you prepared to do?
Well, we have to get to the end of this.
But I'm assuming you
question.
can do both at the same time. You can prepare for that
We
as
do
you do
that.
the other ones, right?
This is what we do. We are engaging with the stakeholders, with the industry, with farmers since the beginning, since the second day of my when I enter in this position. We are really working together in a collaborative manner, and I can tell you that the stakeholders understand and support and agree
But,
with the approach we have been taking since the beginning. And we are ready to go forward, and this is why we have also
But I think-
created this working group.
I think you've got these farmers saying, okay, we want to know that when our crop comes off in the fall, that you've actually completed something. You actually laid out something tangible so the Chinese understand there's consequences for them playing politics with food. It's hurting their reputation, but it's also hurting our livelihoods. So what are those types of items that you put on that list when you talk to your friends in the Chinese government to say, there's going to be consequences if this is not an actual CFIA issue? If it comes back and reality is this is a political issue, which is what everybody is speculating, here's the consequences. Have you looked at that list and what that list would look like? Similar to what we did with country of origin labeling with the U.S. when we said, okay, here's the counter tariffs, very strategic, has a very unique goal in the accomplishment from those lists. I know, Mr. Verhul, you worked in creating some of those lists. So have you done that yet?
The Chinese don't say it's a political issue. The Chinese say it's
Of course,
a
they'll
scientific
say
issue.
that all the time.
Well, they say it's a scientific issue. They say they have evidence that this crop contains impurities, contains pests. We've inspected it twice, and they've shown us no evidence. So the way in which we're going to resolve this, in the way that works best for everybody, is to have a meeting with Chinese officials, to have the scientists have a good go at what's in these samples. If there's a problem, we will work towards solving the problem. If there isn't, then we should move on. This is not the first time,
What does
as you
move
know.
on mean? You say there isn't, because I don't think there is. I
Well,
think most people are saying there isn't an issue here.
we have
We have to
resolved-
check that box, yes, but
No.
what are you going to move on to? What
We
are you
have
going to do?
we have resolved issues with the Chinese before, a number of times over the last decade or so, and scientists have agreed that there is a resolution that's possible. We are waiting, and we have been waiting for a while now for Chinese officials to show us that they have evidence that contradicts ours. That, according to many with whom we've had this conversation, who have history with the Chinese, producers, associations, provincial governments, ministers, say that that is the right way to proceed on this issue now.
Thank you, Minister, and that's the time is up. And I suggest members of Parliament leave the ministers be able to answer the questions, and then if the ministers can keep short answers, then we can have good dialogue without cutting anybody off. Okay, we're going to move right over to the Liberals, and we got Madam Ludwig. You got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here today. I'm actually going to start my questions with Minister Carr. And looking at the situation that we've been in over the decades with reliance on the United States as our main primary export partner, when we're looking at China and canola, what has been done since we formed government in terms of diversifying trade and finding new markets for our canola products?
We've signed trade agreements. We signed a trade agreement with the European Union, and that means that we have now 500 million customers in Canada's free trade zone. We have agreed to the NAFTA 2, for lack of a better acronym. And very importantly, for canola in particular, we have signed and ratified the CPTPP. Importantly, we were among the first 6 nations to ratify. That made record speed through the House of Commons and the Senate. And I want to pause for a moment to thank my Conservative colleagues, in particular Ed Fast, who did a lot of work on this file. And because of the cooperation of the opposition and the Senate, we were able to ratify before the end of the year, which meant we have had 2 tariff reductions, one at the end of December of 2018 and one at the beginning of 2019, which means our producers have been first in to take advantage of this market, and they have. We now know that in the month of January alone, our exports to CPTPP countries grew by 17% year over year. So that is the kind of diversification of markets that matter. We now sell canola to 50 countries internationally, and we continue to redouble our efforts to make sure that countries other than China are reminded of the high quality of our canola and to deepen our trading relationship with them.
Thank you. You also mentioned, Minister Carr, in your testimony that in 2009, there was a challenge between Canada and China regarding canola. What did governments learn from that experience that we could apply today?
Well, I think what we learn is that when we can engage the Chinese in common ground, and the common ground is science, even though we have to say, colleagues, that scientists can disagree on evidence too. It's not pure, but it's a very good start. So the way to work through an issue where Canada says we have inspected a crop and the Chinese say we disagree with the result is to compare results and work through it. That's what trading partners do for each other. This is the finest canola in the world. There are markets in 50 countries from this canola. China is one of our most important markets. We want to safeguard that market, and the best way to do that is to engage them. We seek to engage them.
Thank you. Do I have more time? Great. My last question is one to compliment both of you for your work with our provincial counterparts. Like Mr. Hoback, I think that that's an excellent example of nonpartisanship. And could you explain to us how that process has worked and how it's going to move forward?
Well, first thing, I called the three ministers of the prairies, I think the Wednesday, so the third day. The day right after this situation started, to make a first connection and to ensure them that I was really following the situation closely, and that I wanted to make sure that we have a good collaboration for the benefit of our producers and exporters. Then I had the chance to meet with Minister Eichler in Manitoba. And then with you, our counterpart in Saskatchewan as well. So we had a couple of discussions. We're all on the same page. We understand that we have to really stand for the fact that we have very high quality canola. We have very world-class inspection system, and we have to stand by it. This is the best way to protect our export in the agricultural sector on a sustainable and long-term basis.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ludwig. That wraps up your time. We're going to go to Mr. McGregor for the NDP. Go ahead, sir. You got 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Glad to be here. Thank you very much, Minister Carr, Minister Bibeau, for appearing today. And I very much agree with you that, this is a world-class product that we made. We should be very proud of it. And I very much agree with the Team Canada approach that you talked about in your opening statement. And we know, I'm a member of the Standing Committee on Agriculture. Last year, we did a trip across Canada, and we've heard grumbling from farmers about the CFIA's onerous standards, but at the same time, they realize that those standards are what makes us rise above, and that when you see the maple leaf on agricultural products, you know it's backed by world-class standards. And we've retested our products. We've never had phytosanitary concerns with canola, so we know the scientific-based claims do not hold much water. So assuming that this problem is in fact a political problem and just hypothetically speaking is linked to Huawei and other problems that we're having in our bilateral relationship, going forward and looking at China's track record of having a fairly spotty record respecting WTO rules, how do we ensure that if we resolve this particular crisis, Minister Carr, that going forward we'll have the tools in place to ensure it doesn't happen again? What will the government of Canada come to the table with so that our agricultural producers in another year, 2 years, 5 years down the road are not going to be put in the exact same position, because we know our farmers are very concerned right now?
We first want to engage with Chinese officials, and we want to engage with them at the scientific level. Secondly, we want to make sure that there is support available for producers from the Government of Canada if that becomes necessary. And three, we think that trade diversification is part of the road ahead. We know that that's not something that can happen overnight, but I want to say something more. I want to say that we will travel anywhere at any time if we believe that that trip will lead to a resolution of this issue.
But specific, I mean, if they're going to raise phytosanitary concerns in the future, and you've already acknowledged what an important market it is, I'm just wondering, you know, in what way can we appeal to some kind of an international rules-based convention so that when a party the aggrieved party finds a phytosanitary concern, how do we resolve it quickly? Because, you know, let's assume the worst and this doesn't get resolved quickly and it drags on for months and possibly a year.
I appreciate the question because it drives at the heart of an anxiety that many nations around the world are feeling at this moment in the rules-based trading order, that the World Trade Organization needs to be reformed. And it needs to be reformed soon because the Americans have not appointed appellate court judges, and the whole dispute settlement mechanism of the WTO is at risk. Canada has led an international initiative that includes the EU and nations from every continent to reform the WTO. It's not easy. I like to say if you invite 164 of your neighbors to your backyard on a July night and give them a barbecue and have a conversation about where the cell tower should go, are you going to get consensus among the 164? Probably not, regardless of how good your burgers are. To reform the WTO, you need consensus among 164 nations. So where do you start? You start with those who agree with us that liberalized trade and a rules-based trading order is in the interests of the world, as it has been since the Second World War. So we are very aggressive in bringing together that group. It happened first in Ottawa. We had a second meeting in Europe in January. We meet again in Paris in May, and we meet again in Japan in June. So we believe that there is momentum growing for the reform of these rules, which are so important. We're not naive. We know that if it's going to work ultimately, the Chinese and the Americans are going to have to support it.
And do I have time just for a quick question?
So half a minute, but
Okay.
go ahead.
Minister Bibeau, as a member of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, I hope we can have you appear. The last time we had a minister was at the end of November. But, you know, today before the committee, we heard from the canola growers, and they said there's about 10 million tons of canola in bins, and there's a lot more on track going to export. You know, given the lack of storage space, the fact that farmers are about to plant their crop going forward, and this is going to lead to a crunch, how soon are we going to see the details with what the government of Canada is prepared to do to help our farmers? When will we start to see the details roll out?
Well, I've traveled over there, and I've had the chance to meet with some farmers and actually many in different roundtables. So I understand the issue. I understand that this time of the season is particularly difficult for them because they have to make decisions. But we have a lot of programs already in place to support them. So they have access right today to the advance payment program, for example. They can get an advance of $400,000, including $100,000 free of interest. And actually, that was the start of the new year yesterday. And we already received 1,200, not we, but Canada.
Sorry, Minister, I didn't want to cut you off, but we're quite a bit over time there, and maybe you can pick up on your thoughts with another question. And we're going to go over to Liberals now. Mr. Fonseca, you got the floor.
Chair, and Chair, you will remember as this committee was able to travel on the CPTPP as we were doing our consultations from coast to coast to coast. We know that canola is such an important industry to our country. It is a Canadian-made product. It was founded here, and we heard from. So I know we're hearing from many of the prairie provinces where it's a predominant crop, but we heard from it's BC all the way to the Atlantic and my province of Ontario. Minister Bibeau, my first question is to you: is the Chinese have added further restrictions, and we question the science of those and their decisions. So why are we sticking so closely to the science-based approach?
Well, I strongly believe that it's the best way to find a lasting solution, actually. Because the Chinese are telling us that the issue is that they have found some kind of pest or irregularities in our shipments. And we have made, as we normally do, always do samples and analysis before it left Canada. And then we did it again. We returned to our samples when we haven't found anything. So we have, and as Minister Carr just said, I mean, sometimes scientists don't agree. So they have to sit together and to compare notes and to see what methodology they have used and everything. And if we want to be, I mean, we really have to stand by this very robust system that we have, because I think it's the best insurance for us, for our various agricultural products in various markets, that our system is reliable, that we are selling very high quality products. So this is why it is so important to really go, you know, to the end of this questioning, to protect our Canadian brand and you know, recognize our system.
So just following up on the testing, Minister, the nature of these tests and how we do them here, and then how they're conducted, I guess, in China, and when they look for these pests, would they be similar? How are they done there? How we do those tests here? Might be a technical question.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll let the president of the CFI answer your question. Sure. It's more technical.
So thank you very much for the question. Sometimes the methodologies are very different. So for example, the sampling methodology may be different, the testing methodology may be different, and therefore it's critical for us to have those technical discussions face to face, talking about these methodologies and differences, and also looking at what is their level of acceptable risk around the pests. So it's not just the methodology, but a much bigger discussion around level of acceptability of risk and what it means to each country in the context of canola.
Thank you, Ms. Matheny. Ministers, you had an opportunity to meet with your provincial counterparts and also as well as the stakeholders in terms of their recommendations or looking at their kind of the strategy to getting us to where we want to be. Can you say how aligned we are in terms of what the stakeholders have said and then what the government is doing?
I would say that we are very well aligned. We all agree that we have to protect our brand and protect our system as well. And this is why we have created the working group as well. We think it's very important to keep working in a collaborative manner and to share information on a regular basis and to find the best ways according to how the situation evolves, how we can, you know, proceed. So I think we're really working together. And if I may take a few seconds just to complete my answer, I was about to say that the Canadian Growers Association and other organizations who are managing the APP, the Advanced Payment Program, I've already received more than 1,200 applications. Yes, and agri-stability is also there. And with the working group, we will be looking at the different way we might be improving. We could improve the support we already have in place.
Merci, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Fonseca, and that we're doing quite well here. We've wrapped up the first round. We're going to start the second round off with the Liberals this time. And Mr. Sheenan, you got the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Bibeau. First of all, let me congratulate you on your recent appointment as the Minister of Agriculture and Canada's first female Minister of Agriculture. Congratulations. You started talking about the working group. Could you delve a little bit more into that and tell us, you know, some of the details when it might start? You know, again, you mentioned who was going to be a part of it, but what role will they play and exactly how can they help resolve this very serious issue?
Thank you. Maybe I can start by remembering everyone who's participating in the group. So the Canola Council, the Canola Growers Association, the two companies involved, so Richardson and Viterra, obviously our federal government, but also our counterparts from Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. So I will be represented by my deputy minister on this group. I might be meeting with them as well. And they have planned to have their first telephone meeting this Thursday. And actually there's kind of, I would say, three objectives for them. The first one being, you know, to make sure that we collaborate and we share information all through the process. That we can also work on alternative markets. and and discuss, as I said earlier, discuss the different programs that are in place to support the farmers. So maybe some of them could be improved to better support in this particular situation. So this is the main objectives of the working group.
Thank you very much. And Minister Carr, you had mentioned that this isn't the first time that this has particular, issue has come up. And as soon as you mentioned that, I remember back when I was in high school, and the Minister of Trade was Jim Kelleher, and he spoke to us as a high school, and it was a particular country that had basically barred a agricultural product that was an animal based upon a certain food product that we were using or something or other, and he talked about backdoor protectionism, but he also talked about food security. I'll never forget that. In your opinion, how important is Canada's agricultural business to a country like China? It seems like they're cutting their own nose off to spite their own face. That's just a personal observation, but if you want to comment about how important we are to supply places like Asia.
Well, China is the second largest economy in the world. It is by far the largest importer of Canadian canola. It's growing rapidly, and it will continue to. I take a fair bit of comfort, by the way, in remembering that date of 1910 when the Richardsons signed their first deal with China. That's a long time ago. And I would go out on a limb and say we'll be doing business with China 100 years from now. This is a tough moment in Canada-Chinese relations. We have disagreements. We have serious disagreements over the treatment of Canadian citizens in China who we believe have been arrested arbitrarily. We have an issue with the sentence of a Canadian national that has been moved to the death penalty. And we talk about these issues. There was a question before about the international community. I don't think that I have had a conversation with any of my counterparts internationally without bringing up Canadian values vis-a-vis our relationship with China. That is our responsibility. And because we believe in the rules-based World International Trading Order, we have allies. We have allies who understand that it's in the interests of their people to know that when you sign an agreement, that you can solve disputes in ways that will be accepted by both parties. And that's why we are working so hard internationally, not only to try to build a consensus on how to reform the WTO, but also for Canada to make alliance with those who understand what we're facing now in some of our bilateral relationships. So we're moving on both those fronts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheena. We're going to move over to Conservatives now, and they have 5 minutes. And Mr. Barlow, you got the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the ministers being here on this very important issue. And I can tell you that my producers in Alberta are seized with this. The urgency of this cannot be overstated. As my colleague said, many of them are heading to the fields in the next couple of weeks. But I just wanted to mention something to Minister Carr. I know you said that you're waiting for the Chinese to make a statement on this, that this is a scientific issue. But the China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Gen Shuang, has already said, when asked about is this connected to Meng's arrest with Huawei, he said that is a scientifically sound and reasonable question. The Canadian side should take some concrete measures to correct its previous mistakes. And that is his quote. So China is admitting that this is a political issue. And I'm hoping that the government is dealing with that as well as the science side of it, that we have to understand the reality that we're faced with here. The question I wanted to ask both ministers, whoever can ask, 23 million acres of canola was planted in 2018. As I said, our growers are at home making some very difficult decisions right now. Do they plant canola? Many of them have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on their input costs. They've bought the seed, they've bought the fertilizer. Yes or no? Should these producers plant canola this season, or should they be looking something else?
Well, obviously, I'm not the one who can tell farmers what to plant, but what I can tell is that we are really doing our best all together in a nonpartisan way with the stakeholders, because we understand the importance and the emergency of this issue for them right now at this time of the season. We have a number of support of programs to support them to go through this difficult period as well. So we are really, from one part, engaging in different ways to find a solution, but also supporting them. And we all know that it's more a medium-term solution, but still we are working on diversify our markets. And we made sure also that our trade commissioners in the various countries where we import elsewhere, that our partners are still confident of the high quality of our products, and this is still the situation. So there are other opportunities, and they should know that their government is really standing up for them.
Thank you for that, Minister. We've heard today that, as you said, it's been Richardson and Viterra are the ones who've had their permits revoked. We've also learned today that there's a third company that is in jeopardy of having its permit revoked. Do we know who that company is? And my concern is we've certainly had worries raised by our stakeholders and certainly producers that canola is just the first commodity to be targeted. Do we know? Because what we've certainly heard from our stakeholders is that current contracts that have been signed are being honored by China. However, new contracts on other products are not being signed. Do we know who this third company is who's had its permits revoked? And do we know of other commodities that may or may not be targeted?
We've been informed that there's a third company that received a non-compliance notification, but I'm not at this time. I'm not allowed to share the details on this. But it doesn't mean that they are suspended either at this time. So we will obviously keep working with them and see how it goes. And I forgot the second part of your question.
Do we know of other commodities that may be targeted? We have heard that
Yes.
new contracts are not being new. In other commodities other than canola, China is not signing new contracts in other commodities.
Well, we haven't been informed officially that, anything, there's an impact on other communities. But of course, this situation is creating uncertainty in the markets. And as it is always the case, uncertainty might bring some buyers or importers of our product to delay. This is a possibility, but I have no evidence at this stage.
Okay, my last question. You were talking about the cash advance program. My understanding that $116 million has already been applied for and has gone out on the first day. We've also been told that it is if this continues, it will be maxed out and what funding is available. As part of this task force, is that going to be discussed, as the Premier of Saskatchewan has asked for, that there could be an expansion of the advance payment program?
Yes, this will be on the agenda, definitely. And this is why I want to work with the working group to get as much data and information as possible to make sure that whatever we decide to improve this program or another one eventually, that it's really the best. We choose the best one, the one that will have the more impact on the biggest number of producers, for example. Or I just want to be sure that, before engaging any additional funds, I have to go through a due diligence process, obviously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow. And ministers, you know that there's so many ridings being affected, so many farmers. And as you can see how many MPs are attending the table here today, and many of them don't have a chance to speak, but I appreciate them being here. We got Mr. Kitchen from Moose Mountain from Saskatchewan. We got Mr. McGuire from Brendan Surrey's, Manitoba, and Mr. Dreesen from Red Deer, Mountain View, Alberta. So good to see you guys here also. And no, but they're going to be able to ask the questions. These gentlemen are here because they're very interested, but they won't be able to get to the floor, so that's why I recognize them. We got some people splitting time, and we're going to start off with that. So I just keep in mind when you split time, make sure your colleague gets time enough for their questions. So we're going to go right to the Liberals, and Mr. Hebert, you're starting off, and you're splitting with Mr. Peterson. Go ahead, Mr. Hebert.
Myself?
Yep.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Minister Bibeau. Thank you for being here. My colleague said that she is the first woman to be Agriculture Minister, and she's from Quebec. Congratulations. Ms. Bibeau, you clearly understand the needs of producers and what the industry needs. So my question is this: how is the industry involved in the measures you are taking? And how are you keeping representatives of the industry informed about your efforts? Since the second day of my time as Minister of Agriculture, I began engaging in dialogue not only with experts at the CFIA and in the department, but also with my provincial counterparts. I've spoken to associations representing grain producers, canola producers. So it started on day one, and the discussion has continued. We have been sharing a great deal of information from the outset. Initially, I will confess that when people from the department talked to me about a science-based approach, I wondered what the producers would think of that. But in fact, they were unanimous in agreeing. Everybody agrees that it's crucial to find a genuinely science-based solution because the quality of our agricultural products has an excellent reputation that we need to protect. We also have an inspection system for exports that is a model of its kind internationally and recognized as such. So we need to protect that at all costs. Since China is saying that they have found irregularities in our products, in the canola that they received, we want to know exactly what they found, because we have tested the product both before and after, and we have still found nothing. So the experts have to discuss what has been found. These discussions are taking place on the telephone and on video conference at the moment, but I've asked my counterparts to allow a Canadian delegation to travel there. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, rather, and welcome to our witnesses.
It's going to be kind of two parts, and I'll ask it of Minister Carr. Are we leveraging our relationship with our trading partners as much as we can to help with this problem? Because I think it impacts all of our trading partners. And sort of the corollary of that is, are we ensuring that producers in Canada are aware and able to tap into the other trade agreements that don't involve China? And what are we doing to support on that front?
We are very aggressive in making Canadian producers and small and medium-sized businesses aware of the new trade agreements that are available to them. You may have noticed that in the fall economic statement, there was considerable investment in trade infrastructure, in the Trade Commissioner's services, which will be substantially increased as a result of these investments because of tens of millions of dollars added to Canada Export. And this is a service, by the way, the Trade Commissioners, free to all exporters. And for those who feel uncomfortable with too much reliance on any one market, whatever that market might be, there is now more and more opportunity to expand their export possibilities, and the Government of Canada seeks to partner with them. We talk all the time with our trading partners about liberalized trade and the rules-based system, even before this and certainly after this, because we believe it's in the long-term interests of Canada and the international community.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
Over to Conservatives now, and they're also splitting their time, and Mr. Sopak and Mr. Berthold, you're on. So go start off, Mr. Sopak.
Thanks. Ms. Smithani, you said something that really stuck out for me. Did you say that the canola testing methodologies are different between Canada and China? That's a simple yes or no.
I said maybe. We are not sure.
Okay.
And that's the exchange of information. The interpretation is also different. So there's the interpretation of data, and some of the methodologies may be different.
I was shocked by that statement. Absolutely shocked, because the essence of the scientific process is replicability, and if the two methodologies are different, the Chinese will have it out every single time. So what are you going to do if the Chinese use the excuse, well, our methodology shows
that your canola is substandard, and then you say, so we get into a he said, she said thing. Why haven't we pursued the notion or the notion that both testing systems have to be identical? My question's for the ministers.
I mean, we have to rely on a rule-based trading order. This is very important. And I mean, it's the same not only for Canada and China. We are having this discussion. It's not the first time that we have to enter into a technical and scientific discussion with another country to compare notes. And it happens all the time between scientists. So, I mean, there's no very clear answer to your question. It's a normal process, and we have to go to the end of it. And to do that, we have to have face-to-face meeting between scientists, and then they can challenge themselves.
Just real quick, though, but if the presence or absence of weed seeds, for example, one of the things that they allege, that's very easy. How can there be a difference in testing processes to determine if a weed seed is present or not?
I understand that there's also the risk aversion or the risk. Maybe you can comment on that.
So as far as the interpretation of the weed seeds is concerned, it's actually based on photographs, and it's the photographs that people look at. It's the interpretation. So that's one. The second is when you look at detection methods. So for example, we have no information about how many samples they've tested, how many weeds they've seen per sample is another one. The third thing is that they've talked about a bacteria that they have seen a presence. They've reported a presence. We haven't. We've asked for their methodology. We are currently looking at that methodology, and we are trying to replicate what they've done. The studies are still ongoing.
Okay, thanks. I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Merci beaucoup. Juste quelques questions, Madame Bibot. Tout d'abord.
Thank you. A few questions for Ms. Bibot. First of all, congratulations on the position of Minister of Agriculture. I would like to have an opportunity to discuss all the other fears that producers have. So it would be wonderful to have you on the Agriculture Committee as quickly as possible. If I understand correctly, you're saying that you don't expect this issue to be resolved quickly. No, I don't think I said that. We're very much pushing for a resolution as quickly as possible. But clearly that takes two parties. You have not received an answer to your letter? No, but there's been follow-up. There has been dialogue between our representatives. They met in Italy, if I'm correct. This morning at the Agriculture Committee, there was a discussion of ongoing dialogue for dealing with technical problems with China. But the Chinese are making much less effort than they usually do to deal with this scientific problem. That's what we heard from the CFIA. Not having an ambassador minister can be a problem. You said Ms. Freeland was responsible for negotiations with China. Is that still the case? Yes, it's Ms. Freeland, and ultimately it's the Prime Minister who selects ambassadors. From the outset, as Minister of Agriculture, I've been doing everything I can to focus and support a scientific solution, but we're working on a number of levels. Minister Carr is following this issue too. Has Minister Freeland spoken with the Chinese government? Has Ms. Freeland been in contact with the Chinese government on this matter? No. What we're trying to do is keep the discussion scientific at the moment. We don't want to do anything to increase anxiety or speculation. What the representatives of China are saying is that our product is not of the quality they expected. So it's important for us to keep the discussion scientific. Otherwise, we would simply escalate matters. And we might cause problems when we're trying to prevent them.
Is the acting ambassador of Canada in Beijing, very senior, you know of him, and very competent and able public servant. And he is leading on-ground initiatives on behalf of Canada in Beijing now.
Thank you, sir. And Going to the NDP now, and for 3 minutes, Mr. McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. Minister Carr, in 2015, China and South Korea signed a free trade agreement. And subsequent to that, South Korea had a decision to install an anti-missile battery, and China responded with the following actions. It curbed tourism to South Korea by manipulating tour packages. It found alleged fire code violations in a chain of South Korean department stores, and then it promoted popular boycotts against Korean exports like Kia and Hyundai. Now, I'm not saying we're installing an anti-missile battery, but Chinese officials have alleged that this current imbroglio that we're in is related to the Huawei case. And so going forward, at what point, given that China is got no reservations to use heavy-handed tactics when it feels that its national pride or national interests are at stake, at what point does the government of Canada look at the fact that we have a trade deficit with China that's over $40 billion? And at what point do we start looking at a list of Chinese imports to Canada and saying, you know what, we're going to start looking at what we take from your country because you are treating us with absolutely zero respect? I appreciate that you are following a scientific-based approach, and I think that's the correct way to go. But we also have to keep in mind the elephant in the room, that this may in fact be a political problem, and that we're dealing with someone, a government that has a history of using heavy-handed tactics against countries like South Korea, which, we're a little bit more closely aligned with.
We don't think that it's in Canada's interest to escalate the tension. We think it's in Canada's interest to resolve the problem. And the way to resolve the problem is to agree on what the problem is. And that's why our efforts are so focused on dealing with the issue at that level. If we were to all of a sudden make speculative accusations, if we were all of a sudden to raise this to the highest levels of diplomacy and politics, then perhaps that wouldn't be the fastest road to a solution to this problem. We have to be measured. We have to be scientific in our approach. We want to be aligned with our provincial counterparts and with the industry and with producers, and we are. And that's not always easy to do in Canada. All of us around here are students of Canadian federalism. We probably could enjoy sharing stories about occasional tensions between the government of Canada and the provinces. It's not the case here. And it's not the case here because there's clearly a Canadian interest, and we've seen it before.
And can I just add a quick question with respect to the...
Have to be very quick because
okay, the trade delegation, when do we expect the composition to be known, and when do you expect a date for which it can be sent to China?
Actually, I sent a letter to my counterpart in China, and this delegation would be headed by the president of the CFI. Wanted to be technical in the first step, at least, and hopefully we will resolve the situation there.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. And we're going to move over to Mr. Dhaliwal. You got a question? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister and the staff being here. Minister, as you know, I come from beautiful British Columbia, and canola counts for a large amount of field crops, when it comes to grains and oil seeds produced in British Columbia. I'm just wondered, is there an impact on British Columbia? And if there is, and what have you done and your counterparts have done to mitigate that effect that helps British Columbians?
Actually, British Columbia represents less than 1% of the production of canola that is exported. It's really the three provinces of the prairies who are the most affected by the situation. So
you have other assets.
And obviously, yes, all the programs I've talked about, like the Advance Payment Program and Agri-Stability, they are all...
But as far as my understanding, that 30% of the grains and oilseed crops that are grown in British Columbia are canola, and that's why I was a little concerned that if it is 30%, and particularly in the Peace region, and if there is anything that you can do to find out how that will impact the farmers in British Columbia, and what can we do?
Well, obviously, we want to support all of the producers, but the information I have in front of me is the production for 2018 in tons. And it shows that really Saskatchewan is the most affected with 53.7%, Alberta with 28.9%, Manitoba with 16.3%, and British Columbia with 0.6%.
Thank you.
And obviously, we're working for diversifying our markets for all the provinces.
Thank you.
Or like my father would say, every acre is important, and
Of course.
and there's a tipping effect when it affects exporters, it affects the domestic, and we know that. So, Mr. Weir, we welcome to our committee, and it's unanimous consent here that you can ask a question. So go ahead, sir, you got the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do want to thank members of this committee for giving me a chance to participate since reopening the Chinese market to Canadian canola is a huge priority for Saskatchewan. I also want to ask ministers what actions the government will take to support canola producers until the Chinese market is reopened. As you know, the Saskatchewan government has asked for an expansion of the advanced payment program to provide interest-free loans of up to $1 million. Is the federal government prepared to do that? And if you need to wait for the working group, when can we expect a concrete answer to that question?
I'm open to review the different programs we have already, but I want to take the time to get all the relevant information, and this is one part of what I'm asking the working group to share information on that. Their first meeting will be this Thursday. It will be a telephone conversation, and since we already have a variety of programs to which the farmers and the producers can apply. It gives us the time to really review the different programs like the Advanced Payment Program and agri-stability, for example, and to make sure that the best decisions will be made in considering how the situation evolved as well. And if I may, I want to apologize if it was kind of lost in the translation, because I really didn't mean to say that British Columbia grows were not important. I'm sorry, would have been lost in translation if I said that's something that made you feel this way, because obviously I understand all of them, each and every farmers are very important.
Yeah, and I think that's the way I think you understood it, was how much was growing, not the importance. So, but that's fine.
Course,
Thank you
yes.
for that clarification. That ends our second round, but there's consent amongst parties that we got one more question, and Mr. McGuire, you can be the last one up. Go ahead, sir.
A quick question. I've got about 6 or 7 questions here, Mr. Chair, that I was going to put to CFIA, and I just wondered if I could just hand them in and maybe have them supply the committee, the whole committee, with replies to that, if I could. Thank you. Okay. And my question is, there's no doubt about the quality. We're pursuing the scientific testing. We all agree on that. For accountability, to secure the long-term trading that we need with our trading partners in the world, China being one of them. Given what our colleagues have just said here in regards to the announcements at the table on being more political, even from the Chinese themselves, can we proceed? So how do we proceed from here? Just in relation to that aspect of it, while we try to keep it separate from the scientific side, are we in consultation, given that China's in Washington this week talking about trade agreements between themselves, are we in any kind of consultations with the U.S. And our other counterparts in regards to this particular issue, or how do we handle
we are.
How should we handle that?
We are.
And what can be done there, Mr. Carr? Thanks.
We share in all of our conversations with our trading partners what trading issues might be that are the focus of attention of our government, and issues that may not even be associated with international trade. So there is a continuing conversation. And you develop in pretty short order good relationships with your allies, and you were able to pick up the phone and have these honest conversations, and we are doing that. And as importantly, we're also on the phone with our partners and with our trading partners around the world to do whatever we can do now and in the medium term to expand the countries with whom we do business and deepen the relationship with those with whom we already do business. We know where the bulk of the trade is. We know where the opportunities lie. We know where populations are growing. We know what the needs of those populations are. And it's not only the case with agri-foods. It's also true with natural resources and all of the other commodities that we produce and the services that we can offer internationally as Canadians. So those conversations happen all the time.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. And that wraps up our time, and very productive time we had. Thank you for coming, ministers. As you know, our committee's very seized with this situation, and we would, if you can send us updates as you go along on the situation, we'd appreciate it. So, colleagues, we're just going to suspend only for a few minutes so we can get the officials in, and then we'll go at it again. Thank you. Could MPs take their seats?
What are we doing for rounds here?
I don't know, put your names down.
Just go to 4 minutes.
Everybody ready to go here? Very good first session. We're continuing on our meeting dealing with our situation with the canola industry and trade, challenges we're facing right now. And this last part, we got about 45 minutes, and we are glad that the officials, appreciate the officials coming here. We have officials from Foreign Affairs and Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food, and also Canadian Food Inspectancy Agency. So thank you very much for coming, folks. We're going to change a little bit of the format. We're going to go with 4-minute slots for the MPs. But I understand there's one official speaking, Mr. Verheul. You're going to be speaking. You're going to be opening comments? No opening comments? Okay.
Good speech.
That's good.
Wow.
The shortest speech in the House. No, it's good to see you here, Mr. Verheul. You're not new to trade deals and trade challenges and trade agreements, and we see your face here many times, and thank you for coming, and the rest of the officials are coming with us. So without further ado, we're kicking this off with the Conservatives. Mr. Hoback for 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all. And I guess, it's good to have the CFIA here because we've got to talk about checking off that box before we get to what really is the problem. And I think everybody's come to that conclusion. You've got to deal with the science part of it and eliminate that from the equation as quickly as possible so that actually get to the true heart of the problem. If it's political, then that's what it is. And part of clicking those boxes, have we changed our processes in how we examine canola? Is there any way that you think that they could have made a mistake in the process that could have created a problem with what we sent to China? Absolutely not. Okay, so we'll get that on the record. Is there anything you've seen in the samples when you relooked at them to say that, hey, this is a problem, or it would raise concerns that would be unusual compared to other samples you've had from other companies?
We've rechecked the ones using the methodology we had. We came back negative, so there's nothing to suggest anything's different than they were these times or times before when we've done.
And then if we're looking at the pictures of wheat seeds, you're looking at the pictures, and those are the same pictures that they'd have in China, I assume?
As noted on the pictures, that's one of the issues. You can't judge something by a picture. You really do need to examine them because they're done by visual distinguishing, so you actually need to see them and be part of it. So that is one of the main reasons we would like to have a face-to-face meeting.
One of the concerns I think would be is, okay, I don't trust your science and you don't trust mine. So one of the ways path forward would actually take the next vessel and say, okay, you come and inspect the vessel in Vancouver as we load it. You take your samples with us, and we'll analyze the samples together, and then if you want to redo it again, we'll come and join you in China and reanalyze the samples to show that we're actually dealing with, true samples that haven't been doctored from us or from them. Is that on the game plan? Is that some way you see the path forward here?
Yeah, I would, from my perspective, with due respect, I would say we wouldn't use language like doctrine, but I think that your point about having joint export inspection and arrival inspections would be an opportunity to make sure both people see it out the same way.
Okay, and then Mr. Verhul, on the ground right now, we've got customers in China that actually would be needing that canola. So what is our trade officials doing on the ground, the trade commissioners, people like that, doing to, similar to what we did in the U.S., to make sure that they understand what it means to them by not having this product being available to the market?
Well, we are doing considerable advocacy with the companies in China to the extent that we can do that. Our trade commissioners are very active and engaged in this file as well as, and other officials in the embassy in addition to that. So we're making every effort we can to keep in constant touch and keep up to date. And
would you be able to share any intelligence? Do our customers there on the ground have any concerns with our canola?
Our importers, I think we at the Ag Committee this morning, you had their major exporters, Richardson's, Viterra. They talk about contracts. Obviously, there's contracts people are pleased with our canola or quality. I think right now we're just looking at it, and the importers are looking at it from a regulatory point of view. What the
so it comes back to the Chinese officials, not the actual purchaser.
That is correct.
That has an issue with this. Okay. As we move forward and look at opportunities or alternatives, how do you see? Or what do you see for timelines to have this box checked? Like, if everything was to smooth, if there's true desire on both parties to solve this, could we have this solved, at least this box checked within the 2 weeks, 3 weeks? What's a fair time frame to say, okay, we can have this completed? Because the reason I ask this, and this is why I was really pushing this committee to meet earlier, is time is of an essence. Even though we have our own calendars here in Ottawa, reality is a farmer sitting there and he's saying, do I put this bag of seed in the ground or do I return it? And these are big decisions that have to be made. They're big dollars. So what is your time frame? How quickly can you push this forward if you have a willing partner on the other side?
You just have to have a quick answer there. So
I would tell you we're ready to get on a plane today, tomorrow. We have people ready. Obviously, that would be the Chinese to confirm when we can meet with them. And that would be sort of the first thing, be able to, after that, I couldn't really speculate how long till we actually have that first conversation.
But you could move relatively quickly.
We're very capable of moving very quickly.
Like you did under Minister Ritz.
Thank you, Mr. Hoback, and we're going over to Mr. Dhaliwal. Go ahead.
Thank you. That was a yes, I
Mr.
think.
Chair, and thank you to the management as well. Mr. Verhul, first of all, congratulations and thank you for the great work that you have done on USMCA, and you were very successful along with the minister. And I'm just wondered, you have handled a pretty difficult file when it came to that agreement. And do you see the same amount of efforts we are putting in now to resolve this issue?
yes, I would say so, because I think that at the moment that this issue first came to our attention, there has been a significant amount of resources from all involved departments applied to this, from CFIA to Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, Global Affairs, and others. And this has been a top priority of our department since the issue first arose.
As Ms. Mathani was saying earlier, that there are different ways of tests, different processes when it comes to testing. Do we have a full confidence in the scientific testing system that we have in Canada is very much equitable to the one in China?
I would say we have great confidence in our testing methodology and the science that we use in Canada. It's based on international standards. It's validated. I can't speak, and that's one of the things we can't speak directly to the Chinese methodology right now, because what they've done is indicated that they've had problems. They've had quarantine pests, and what we said, we'd like to validate that, ask them for their methodology, what is your testing, sampling plans, etc. And without that information, we really can't, I would not be in a position to answer your question. And that's really why we're saying, let's have a face-to-face meeting so we can determine exactly what you're looking at and why. And we're going to say exactly what we're doing and why.
So what are the timelines that we're looking at for that meeting and the resolution?
We've asked for that meeting as soon as possible. In fact, one of the chief plant health officials is actually in Rome today with the Chinese counterpart who they've had the two conference calls already. He's asked them when can we have that conversation, and what we've responded is that they have the information, they have the request from Minister Bibeau as well as from the President Metheny, and they said we'll advise you as soon as possible. That's all we have, sir.
And how do you see, like from your experience, do you see them reluctant meeting with you, or do you see they're cooperative when it comes to the environment that you see around there, the talks?
All of their language and the conversations we've had at the technical level have been cordial, polite, and professional. There's no suggestion that there's anything else. So they said, we very much want to have a technical dialogue, but we really do need an answer to that question. And as Mr. Verheuvel said, our trade commissioners in Beijing have been talking to Customs China and sort of impressing upon them the importance of having this meeting as soon as possible.
Do you believe that farmers should do anything else to bring to mitigate the stuff that either the issues that they are raising, or they have done everything in the past that they could have done, and you as officials dealing with this have also explored every avenue possible to help?
Just is a good question. Canada exports canola to many countries around the world. We're the largest exporter of canola, and countries love our quality and the use of it. So what we're doing, what our farmers are doing, their growing practices, they're responsible, they're looking at sustainable growth. All of it is very positive. Right now, I think we really do want to have that conversation with the Chinese on specifics. And then based on that, we'd be able to share information with this committee and others, as well as the farmers, to see if there is anything else we need to do. We're quite confident, though, on what we're doing. And again, we export canola all the way around the world, and people are very pleased with the product and the quality of it.
Thank you, Mr. Dhaliwal.
Thank you, and thank you to you.
Good questions. I think you could be a real good farmer.
I was farmer before
sorry,
I came to
sorry.
Canada.
Sorry for that mistake. So anyway, we're going to move over to the NDP, and you got 4 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. We heard today testimony from both Viterra and Richardson at the Agriculture Committee. And, Richardson in particular made note of the very long history it has of trading in China, the relationships it's cultivated over 100 years. And both companies stressed the fact that with canola in particular, there is no one case of phytosanitary concerns with it at all. And so I know that you have the utmost confidence in our methodologies and the way we test for pests in our containers that are destined for export. I know that you attach certificates so that the importing party can see that it was verified before it left our ports. During all this time since we started trading canola with China back in 1994, they have not found a problem up to date. There have been a few concerns in other years, but by and large, it's been pretty good. And other countries have faith in our system, and they haven't found any problems. So, going to the fact that you have a team that's ready, willing, and able to go at moment's notice. I understand we're waiting for visas for the official invitation to come. Is that where we're at right now? And how long generally does this kind of thing take? And at what point do we kind of start to worry that there's an unreasonable delay?
Thank you for the question. One thing you need to get an invitation to have an official delegation, and then they provide the visa. You use the invitation to go into the embassy, and then you would get a visa based on that invitation. So just to put that in the order. And as you said, we have had a lot of history with China and canola ourselves as well, from a plant health and both from a trade side. We had some issues in 2009, 2016. But our exports have continued to grow going to China. What I would say is that what we've been successful at is through sustained efforts. It's never been a short 2009, 2006. These are really sustained efforts, but we've always found a way forward. I think what the question will be and continues to be, when will we be able to have that technical meeting?
And then based on that, we will be able to see what is the differences of interpretation based on these weed seeds and other issues. And it really does get down to, without us saying, what you think and I think, how are you interpreting it? And then we really have to have that technical conversation to determine if there is, what's the next steps.
And in requesting the methodologies and the results of their samples and so on, you've made the request for them. What's the response been like? Is the response from the Chinese government saying, well, we're just putting all of that together and we'll make it available soon?
They have provided some information,
Okay.
some information they have not. So
Okay.
it's been, they have been engaging, as I indicated to Mr. Dhaliwal as well. They have been polite, professional, and cordial. At the same time, we haven't been able to have that conversation we need. So we have some of the information that we've asked for, some we have not.
Are any of you able to offer some responses on the advance payments program?
In terms of,
Just in terms
as you know,
of
we have
the
the advanced
demand that's already been exhibited, and will the program, given can you project ahead as to what the needs will be based on what the uptake has already been?
Okay. So, I mean, as you've heard from the minister, and then this morning from the Canadian Canola Growers Association, which is the administrator for APP when it comes to canola, that there's been an uptake yesterday in the new calendar year. And as the minister indicated, the working group, one of the tasks of that working group that we'll be meeting on Thursday will be to give us an indication and an information exchange in terms of that demand from the grower community, and to the extent to which we need to look at perhaps making some changes to some programs such as the APP.
Thank you, and that wraps up the time. We're going to go to Liberals. Mr. Fonseca, go ahead.
Chair, and can I ask you, as the government of China indicated, in their words, maybe whatever mistakes they feel have been made, what those mistakes are that need to be corrected? Have they indicated what they are? They talk about pasts or whatever, but what are the mistakes? Have they said that there's certain mistakes? Have they been...
We were just deciding whose question that was.
Oh,
Sorry.
sure.
Relative to mistakes, again, they have... Are you talking about the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or are you talking about the agriculture side?
No, I'm talking about agriculture.
Okay.
And then what concrete measures are they looking for?
They haven't been specific. They said you should review your system, look at the distribution, look at everything, your cleaning. Basically, they said look at your whole system. They use words. I think something like it's not functioning at what it should be doing. It's not giving us a level of assurance. And as we've said before, we're taking a very robust defense of our system, because our system isn't just for China; it's for around the world. Around the world is very proud of our system. And I would also comment on this morning at the Ag Committee, both Viterra and Richardson said we have state-of-the-art system and how it's used. So again, without specifics, when they make general statements, it's very hard to get into a dialogue with them, because you really want to ask them, what are they asking of us? We haven't had that chance yet.
And is this the first time we've experienced something like this? Have we faced something like this in the past?
It's almost unfortunate that I've been involved with this issue for many years. But I would say with China, we've had, in 2009, it's a separate issue. It was it's called blackleg. We've been a fungus that we've been working on. 2016, we've been working on that. So we have had, over a period of 10 years, we've had a number of differences of opinion with the Chinese government relative to plant health interpretation. And as I said, it's through sustained efforts that we've been able to come out the other side, and exports have continued, and quite frankly, they've been growing at a healthy rate.
Okay, and our government is seized with this as you've had some success in the past when this has come up. Is a strategy put together with trade? Does everybody get into a room and kind of work out a strategy on how to move forward in terms of how to address, be it the science, and then also some of the other issues that may have arisen?
We're fully integrated. So I would say Global Affairs, Agriculture Canada, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, our Trade Commissioner Service, as well as other departments, we're fully integrated, and what we work together is a whole of government approach.
So, according to the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, in 2016, the Government of Canada and the Government of China concluded an agreement that allows Canada to export canola seed to China under existing commercial terms until March 2020. Does this agreement ensure that Canada's canola producers have unimpeded access to China's market?
That is the agreement that was signed in 2016, and what they have identified that in the context of that agreement, they're saying they're finding some other problems, and they're bringing it to our attention, and they've suspended the two companies based on that. So we want to have again the conversation to say, what is your concern? We have a framework for what should be tested, how we should be testing it, and they said we found some new issues that we want to talk about, and they have concerns. This is where we are today, sir.
So the agreement, is it binding and enforceable?
No, it's not a treaty. It's a binding between two organizations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fonseca. We're going to go into the second round. We're doing really well here. Madam Ludwig, you got 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you all again for your testimonies today. Mr. Verheerl, we announced, or the government announced in 2016, exploratory discussions between Canada and China for a free trade agreement. How might a situation or a case like this impact those discussions, or how you might approach them moving forward?
Well, we're not currently actively having those discussions with China at the moment. Certainly, this kind of an issue is something that you like to get out of the way before you get into any kind of broader negotiation, and so we would like to see this resolved as soon as possible so that we can move on to expanding our trade relationship with China and expanding our trade across all commodities.
Thank you. I had a case in my riding where it was a particular company. They had exported a product. When the first container arrived, it had been tested, and the country of exception looked at it and said there was an issue with it, and there wasn't harmonization between the standards of testing. But they did have a third country that they would agree to that would be able to do some of the testing. Is that option here in the case of China?
I would say no. I would say China, their sovereignty and what they're testing on their own imports as well as our exports. I think the idea that was proposed of checking our export certification, our import certification together, making sure our methodology, that would be something that would be at least a possibility to ensure we're looking at things the same way.
Okay, thank you. My next question is actually for you, Mr. Gorel. It would be, when we look at Canada and China and the exports, what percentage of canola actually comes of imports from the China imports from Canada? What percentage of that of their total canola? Does that make sense?
Can you try that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So of all the canola that is exported to China, what percentage is it of Canadian product?
40%.
That's how much we.
How much Canadian? Very good question.
40% of our canola exports, of total exports of canola from Canada, go to China.
So 40% of
total Canadian canola seed exports go to China.
So looking at that scenario, what would be the substitute for Canadian high quality canola?
So if you
they're
look
not
at
importing ours?
Yeah, sorry. Good question. Because it's 40% of total exports, it's our single largest export market right now. The next 3 markets for canola seed don't even total up to the 40% for China. So we've had Mr. Carr, Mr. Bibeau has had conversations with the exporters that were also mentioned, Richardson, Viterra, as well as others. Has talked to the provinces. There is no one single market that would take that much canola at one time, but they do look at, on the diversification strategy, what other markets might be able to take some, incremental, but it would take time, but it wouldn't be something that you could do immediately just because of the size of China.
Thank you. And then on that, which country would be our best or our greatest competitor for canola?
Well, the good thing is we're the world's largest exporter of canola, and there's no one really close to us. Australia does export. You might find some coming out of the Black Sea now, Ukraine, Belarus.
Would there be enough in Australia and the Black Sea that would feed the Chinese market?
I think it would be highly unlikely, and especially at our level of quality.
Okay, thank you. Do I have time?
We're going to go over to Conservatives. Mr. Barlow, you got the floor. 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And just to Mr. Fonseca's question, I want to just clarify on the previous mistakes. And this was, again, by the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, again, Shuang, when asked specifically about Ms. Meng. And his complete comment was, as for China-Canada relations, we hope that the Canadian side can work with us to promote the sound and steady development of bilateral ties. The Canadian side should take some concrete measures to correct its previous mistakes. So it wasn't talking about the science side. This is talking about political foreign affairs side. So I just wanted to read that into the record as to his question on that. But picking up with what Ms. Ludwig was saying, I know Mr. Forsyth and Mr. Verrill, you might be the best to answer this. Is we heard from the trade minister, that he's going to be looking for new markets to try and divert the canola seed that was going to go to China to other markets. My understanding, there isn't crushing capacity anywhere else in the world that could possibly displace what was going to be exported and processed in China. Is that correct? Or are there some other opportunities for other markets to take what would be close to several million tons of canola seed?
Well, certainly, since we have lost access for at least 2 companies on hopefully a temporary basis, that does put a big hit into our canola exports. We are certainly looking at other markets, and we'll be trying to do the best we can in those other markets. We have strong markets in Japan and Mexico and various other countries around the world, but it's quite true that they're not of the same size as Chinese market. So we have been talking to the industry about diversifying exports that would have been destined for China. But I don't think we can say that that's going to be a solution to this issue, which is why we're actively trying to resolve the issue with China and putting as many resources as we can into that effort.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think that is our best solution is to repair the relationship with China in whatever means that takes. And I appreciate that we're looking at multi-pronged approach, science and hopefully political as well. I did ask the question of the minister, but they weren't really able to answer. And we've certainly heard from our stakeholders that existing contracts with China are being honored in other commodities other than canola seed. But we've certainly heard a lot, and it has been in the media as well. So maybe some misinformation that's being put out there. Mainly, I'm guessing from Chinese importers, the companies themselves, that have said they are no longer going to be signing new contracts on other commodities. I know flaxseed has been mentioned, barley has been mentioned, wheat. Is this true? Is that misinformation? Or is there a move from these Chinese exporters to no longer sign new contracts with Canadian producers? Or as well, they've threatened that any shipments that come to China will be heavily scrutinized, which is a pretty stern warning of what will happen if we try and send commodities over there. Is this a lot of misinformation out there, or are these things that we need to be wary of?
Just a short answer would be good.
Sorry, thanks, Mr. Chair.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we certainly do have some information. I think that it's clear that China has been more closely scrutinizing canola exports from any source. We have certainly heard the same kinds of rumors you have heard. We have not had any kind of formal notification or indication from the Chinese government that they were intending to take action against any other commodity.
Thank you.
Good. We're going back to the Liberals. Mr. Sheehan, go ahead.
Canada exports obviously 2.7 billion in canola exports to China, but they also export 1.3 billion to Japan, and then about almost 700 million to Mexico. And I guess the question we need to ask, has Japan or Mexico raised any issues with our canola from Canada? Pardon?
No.
Nothing
I
at
mean,
all?
never. I will not. Regular course of business, like there's always issues when trading, but we have nothing in the context of what we're talking about here with China.
So they feel that our canola is safe and it's good for them to consume and eat, and they're going along regularly.
Correct.
So I guess that highlights and underlines our position, I suppose, with our science-based approach that everything is all right. Is it possible to get some backing from Japan and Mexico in this sort of discussion at this particular time?
Well, I think obviously the Chinese importers, and then you have the Japanese importers, and you have the Mexican importers. They're all looking at it from a contract point of view as well. So, but I think, and the government, we don't know the contracts that are between the companies and the importers, but they have signaled very clearly that they're happy with their product. They will buy more if they're able to, because again, it's all supply and demand, what they need on the other side. But we haven't, they haven't said whether they're going to support us in this particular thing with China. I think that's the nature of your question.
Probably they don't want to get involved with, but I think it's important to highlight and underline that they see our canola products as the great product that they are, and they continue to flow. I guess the last question I have, and I know the chair had said I only had a little bit of time, was whilst we have this working group that was formed that the minister had announced, from your opinion, what exactly is the value in them, and what can they do to deal with this expeditiously?
I think they're having the first meeting on Thursday, or first call relative to that. I think they're going to be looking at Mr. Carr identified. They're going to be looking at the what programs, what can be needed for the farmers. They're looking at the diversification, and I think they would also be looking, and I forget, Steve, what was the third one, if you can. But I mean, they're going to be sharing the information and making sure all stakeholders, governments are on the same page, and then looking at what we can do together. I think it's a good use of our energy, and it shows that we're all working together collectively, because at the same time, we're going to need to make decisions together as we move forward. That's my sort of assessment of what the first call would maybe like.
Okay.
Mr. Sheehan, go with these 4-minute rounds, but when we're splitting time, I suggest the members just ask one question so your colleague can get a shot in there too. So anyway, so we're going to go to the Conservatives now. Mr. Kitchen, you're splitting with Mr. McGuire. Go ahead, Mr. Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here. And I come from the southeast corner of Saskatchewan, and I might have a little contention amongst my colleagues here that would say they might have bigger or more canola farmers than I do, but well, let's just say we're equal. But the reality is we have seeding just around the corner, and not any weeks away. They've got a carbon tax that's being dumped on them, and now they're trying to deal with an issue of dealing with how and where they're going to market their product. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the emphasis on the science, because that's what we truly believe is going to prove our point and continue to do that. You brought up an issue about bacteria, and I'm interested to hear how that is. What is China saying to you on this avenue, and where are we showing them the science to say differently?
They brought to our attention a number of weed seeds that we've talked about, quarantine pests. The other issue that you made reference to was a bacterium that they've told us the bacterium what it is, and they've asked us to look into it. We're doing testing on that, and we'll be able to. We've asked for the methodology, which they've provided us. Again, we don't have all the answers on that, but we're looking at it. At the end of the day, when canola is processed, when you put it through and it's pressured, all of these things are destroyed and killed. At the same time, they've identified that, so we have to do our due diligence and look at it, see exactly what they're doing, see if we can repeat what they're doing, and then have that engagement with them. It is not a food safety issue at all. It is something that they have found in the seeds that they said they would want us to look at.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Breyer?
Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair. The situation is that we hopefully, we've already got the working group. It's going to go, at some point, there'll be a group going to China. I'm assuming from the minister's comments today. And I'm just wondering what rank of official, you've been in the trade side, Mr. Verhulst, Mr. Forsyth, others as well, Kathleen and Ms. Donahoe, pardon me. What level of people would you expect to meet with in China in regards to normal participation of business when you're going in on a mission like this? And once we get acceptance and clearance, I just wondered what level would our inspectors are going to go in, what level would you expect to be meeting with over there as well?
It's being led by the president of the CFI, as you heard, so that's a deputy minister level. It would be supported by an ADM as well as technical officials, both as a director or under. These are people, plant health experts. Some of them are in the room in here behind me, and they're the people who have been working on it. So you're looking at a senior level delegation supported by a broad range of technical people, and it would also be strongly supported by our embassy, at the seniors level, and so that's the nature of the delegation, sir.
But I'm clear on that. But what level of people in China? Who would you be meeting
comparable.
with in China?
If you look at it, it would be, they're very level conscious. You would meet at similar levels.
Sir, I have a quick question, just following up from Mr. Kitchen. My understanding is we have whole grain, and then we have the crushing industry, oil. Are we, right now, is it the problem just with the grains? Like, is it crushing in the oil industry? Do we sell a lot of oil, and there's no problem with that product, is it?
Yeah, right now, that's a good question. Thank you, Chair. It is just the seed. So it's just the canola seed. We also, as you indicated, there's canola oil, and then there's canola meal. The only issues that we're having right now are with canola seed. And obviously, we export canola oil around the world and consume a lot of it in Canada as well.
And China buys a lot of oil and crushed also.
They do.
It's not being affected. Okay.
Not affected, sir.
Okay, thank you. NDP, Mr. McGregor, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to ask that question, so thanks for clarifying that for me. But yes, I do note that out of our exports to China, we exported 4.8 million tons of canola seed, which was valued at 2.7 billion, but 1.1 million tons of canola oil, which was valued at 1.1 billion. So obviously you can see the effect of a value-added product there. Now, I'm not sure if it was at this morning's committee, the Standing Committee of Agriculture, we heard that it's pretty much impossible to have phytosanitary concerns with oil because it's gone through the crusher, it's a processed product, I think it's gone through a heat treatment, it comes out and it's in a sealed container. Can you confirm that?
If it's a consumer-sized product, people can look at it for other reasons, but anything can be looked at from a food safety point of view. I'm just saying, even in Canada, we look at.
But it's harder to make the claims against an oil.
Yes, I think I understand the nature of your question.
Yeah.
I would say a consumer prepackaged product is stable and it's usually considered safe.
Do we have information with respect to our oil in particular, the exports of our canola oil to China? Looking at over the last 10 years, do you have rough numbers on how the demand has increased for our oil?
We can get you the numbers, but I think your numbers that you identified, the 4.8 relative to our seed and the 1.1 billion on the oil, that oil demand has been going up over the years, as has our seed.
And what currently, do we have information on Canada's crushing and processing capacity? Like, are we maxed out right now, or do we have the ability to absorb more? Because I'm just looking ahead at all that canola that's sitting in bins, and if this problem isn't resolved, we're going to have a lot more of this problem.
We're close. We'd have to, again, with all the crushers and the various companies, we're close at running at capacity right now. And one of the things the industry likes to do, they like to have choice to export seed, oil, and meal, and they use it domestically. They sell it to the United States as well. So they establish their industry and how they look at it to be able to sell all three products wherever they want. But we're pretty close to, I would say, I don't know exact number, but we're close to capacity.
I know that the Canola Council of Canada has certainly been, advertising the fact that they've been, developing biofuels, their biodiesel blend with canola oil. Just looking ahead, I know we've heard from the minister about diversification and so on. Is it a reasonable strategy to look at Canada's processing capability and looking ahead to maybe increasing that? Just because if you look at the numbers, the value per ton is a lot more. Do you think there is a worldwide market, and do we have the capacity? Is it a smart strategy going forward to invest in more processing capability of oil?
You've raised a very interesting point because and I'll look at my colleagues as well, but there's country diversification, but there's also product diversification. So there is an opportunity to look at products and diversifying, as you've made reference to it, and I think there is an opportunity in that area.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We just got time for one slot, and we're going to get a split time here. Mr. Dreesen, Mr. Sopak, you got the floor. Go ahead, Mr. Dreesen.
Well, thank you very much, and it's great to be back with my former colleagues on Trade Committee. So I'm also on ag, and this morning we had an opportunity to talk with CFIA. I know one of the questions that had come up, these inspections are also done load by load by the farmers, so we know exactly what it is that's going into the system, and fortunately we have great faith that the rest of the process works as well. Unfortunately, when a person can't give 100% assurances because no physical scientist is ever going to say that, that's when the political scientists jump in, and so we should all be understanding just how strong the system is and how great the product is that we're trying to sell. My question, though, I'd like to speak to Mr. Verhoeven about some of the concerns and issues that I have. Right now, the U.S. and China are busy trying to work on how they are going to move agricultural products, and we are sidelined from both of those. The U.S. with obvious reasons that no doubt people have talked about, but China because of this issue that we have going on now. What do you think we need to do to be able to stay involved and continue relevance with the discussions that are taking place with the U.S. vis-a-vis our agricultural products and their potential movement?
Well, we despite some challenges we have with the U.S. from time to time, we have been maintaining close linkages with our counterparts in the U.S., and we have talked to them about their discussions with China as well. Clearly, the U.S. is seeking to try to reach an agreement with China that covers a broad range of areas, and are trying to do that on a bilateral basis. But we're following that very closely to assess any implications that might have for us. And we're also asking our various contacts on the Chinese side as well about their perspective. And so we're getting what I would say is a reasonably full picture of how that's working. The challenge for us is to figure out exactly how we can maximize our own benefits out of that.
It's good to have you back, Mr. Dreesen. And Mr. Sopak, you've got a couple minutes there.
Thanks, great. Mr. Verhoeven, given your experience in trade negotiations, and given that China is very much a top-down system of state capitalism, how difficult, and with a culture that's very different from Western cultures, how difficult is it to negotiate with the Chinese on these kinds of matters, given that the orders from the top are obeyed instantly by the private and public sectors?
Mm-hmm. Well, China is certainly a different kind of a negotiating partner than the U.S., for example, and many others. But we negotiate with countries all around the world, and I wouldn't say that China is the most difficult. It's all a matter of establishing the right kind of relationships. And I think that while China does certainly have, as you put it, a kind of a top-down type of approach to their government, you still get to a point where when you get to technical issues, you're talking scientist to scientist, and it's difficult to have instruction coming down to that level of detail. So we have found that despite what might be happening at higher political levels, we can still have a good dialogue with the Chinese, and we can find solutions to try to move forward.
Do you believe in Palmerston's dictate that countries don't have friends, only interests?
That's a little last question. I guess we'll have to leave that as a statement, Mr. Sopak. And that wraps up our some good questions, good dialogues, and some good information, officials. And thank you for coming, and good luck. And this is a multi-department challenge we have, and we're all doing this, of course, for our industry and our workers in this industry and the farmers, of course. So thank you for coming. And we hope to see you back. Mr. Hoback, you had a comment?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to read into a couple of motions here just to get on the record to deal with next Thursday. And then one to just maybe talk about here a little bit quickly now. But the first one, again, these first two are for Thursday. That the committee call industry associations and producers to testify in front of the committee to discuss the impact of Chinese withdrawal of the canola market. And then my second motion would be that we invite Chinese officials, including the ambassador, to discuss Canada's China relationship and canola. And then the third motion, or the third item, I think we should maybe talk about a little bit amongst ourselves quickly here if we have time, that we send a letter asking the Speaker for an emergency debate on canola. Just if we'd consider doing that as a committee. You know, that's something that's very important to farmers, and we can see time is of essence. So if that came from the committee, I think that would help the Speaker make a decision on moving that forward. So
there's three motions here. Are you, no, just there's three motions. Your notices, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that.
The third one I'd like to deal with now if we could, but if there's unanimous consent. If there isn't, there isn't. But okay.
We'll have to, Mr. Hobeck, we'll have to leave it as is. You tabled your motions.
Even ask your friend.
We'll leave it at that. Okay, thank you, folks, and okay, it was a good meeting. It's adjourned.